Hey YouTube, welcome back to another episode of the Lincoln Williams Show. Today, I want to talk about something that's been on my mind for a while since I've been messing around with my Retron 5. Yeah, I'm going to be talking about the NES, basically, which is the Nintendo Entertainment System. And how long has it been since it aired, and what are its plans for it now? I mean, what's happening with the Nintendo Entertainment System? So let me just go take you back to the 1980s, basically, where video games were all popular and stuff like that. So, anyways, before Nintendo used to be a video gaming company, they were a card making company. They would make actual cards, and they actually made a Pong console. They didn't really, make the Nintendo Entertainment System yet. They didn't make the NES yet, but they did make a Pong console that was kind of decent in a way, but it wasn't really overall that good, in my opinion, and many other people's opinions. In 1985, hold on just a sec. Yeah. Hold on. Yeah, it doesn't say a date. But in 1985, Nintendo released the Nintendo Entertainment System. The first model of the Nintendo Entertainment System was, you guessed it, the toaster. This big freaking behemoth toaster oven, basically. The toaster was mentioned for these. Hold on, let me just pick a random game from my set of NES games. You would take a regular NES game. This is Rad Racer, basically. Rad Racer is a pretty decent racing game, in my opinion. It's like an arcade racer game that they used to play back in the arcades. And now you can play this at home on your television set. This is the original Nintendo cartridge, as you can see. And these little... Do you see these little pin things right here? These little dips? That thing was meant for you to grab the cartridge like this, take it from each end, put it in the Nintendo Entertainment System, press it down with your two fingers like this, press it down like that, and play all the games that way. That's why they have these little dips right here. But there was a problem with the toaster. It was like a big freaking PC, basically. It was like a brand new home video game console. So Nintendo did not know what to do when the problems occurred with the system. And it was a big train wreck because the Nintendo Entertainment System was $100 at that time. And that was just weird, in my opinion. For a video game console to be that popular and to have that much, expensive variety around it, it just wasn't really worth it. But the NES 001 model, not the top loader, but the toaster came with this. It came with this controller, basically. This is a remodel of the controller. As you can tell, it's not concaved as the original one. This was an exact replica of the original Nintendo Entertainment System controller, basically. So it has no L&R triggers because they didn't have those back then. So this is your basic brick controller, basically. So and this thing is brand new. I played with it a lot, and it's working pretty much fine. It's basically tiny. That's all. So that's basically what the first video game home console controller successor was to the Atari. This is the overall successor to the Atari, basically. Put that aside. Now, Nintendo had a few problems with the overall not top loader, what am I saying? The toaster, basically. The toaster, you open the lid up to the system, and then you put a cartridge in, like I said in the video, with your two little fingers, just plug that baby in and press it down. But when you press that thing down, like on a game such as Rad Racer, you press that thing down with your two fingers, it would damage the pins. And most of you are thinking, why is that the problem? Well, the problem is that Nintendo wasn't really thinking properly when they were making the Nintendo Entertainment System with the pin connectors. I mean, why do you have to insert the cartridge in this way, press it down, and play your game? Why don't you just insert your game, then play the game? Don't press it down, because number one, it's going to damage the system. It's going to damage the pin connectors. Won't be able to read the games. Then it'll force you to buy another pin connector, and that's just great. That's just overall great in my opinion. It's not great at all, YouTubers. That nearly destroyed like 100 toaster ovens, like toaster NES toasters, basically. I just like to call it the toaster because I have no idea what to call it right now, basically. So there was all sorts of problems with the system itself. It was bad. I mean, people were just complaining about it, crashing. It was crashing, and people had to get replacement pin connectors. They would have to open their system up at a manufacturer's store. I mean, thank gosh Nintendo doesn't have to do this anymore with the Nintendo NX coming out. But, they used to have a service line which you had to call or had to go to the, probably the Nintendo or video store just to get your game fixed. And that was just, it's like, oh, what's wrong with it? What's wrong with the system? And all that stuff. And, it's pretty interesting. You should check out the commercial of the NES Nintendo helpline. It's very interesting to check out. So I highly recommend that you check that out. It's very interesting if you're a retro gamer that collects NES games, like me. So, anyways, they would have to go to their shops, basically, except I know a guy that used to work for Nintendo, and that is my history teacher, Mr. Pickard. Yeah, Mr. Pickard, though, he used to work for Nintendo, and I was really happy to figure that out. And I was like, oh, I'm a fan of video games. Are you a fan of video games? And he was like, I used to work for Nintendo. And and he's like, and I'm like, whoa, you used to work for Nintendo? And he's like, yep. And guess what I had to do at that place? Fill in walkthroughs. Whoa, walkthroughs. I mean, what kind of walkthroughs? The kind that you open up in the little booklets, the Nintendo Power booklets, and find all the little hidden clues to, take for example, Castlevania Simon's Quest. Yeah, this game is hard as heck. So, anyways, yeah, if you want hardcore NES, this is the game to play. But it's actually really fun if you're using cheat codes. Yeah, it's very fun if you're, using NES games to play cheat codes. That's always the fun route. That way you won't have to get frustrated every time. Anyways, yes, there was a lot of things going on in the 1980s. Back to the Future came out, yes, in 1985. I watched it last night. I watched a little bit of last night. They made a Back to the Future game for the NES. Yeah, they made a game for the NES on Back to the Future, and that was actually really good. Sorry, I hiccuped for a little bit. So yeah, don't mind me. It's just my hiccups. Basically, what was going on in that time? It was really crazy for video games. It was very crazy. People were getting very inventive with side scrollers, RPGs, dog fighter games like, the hardest plane game of all time. The hardest plane game of all time. And I actually have this in my collection. And when I looked in the box, I was a lot of NES games that I actually got from a thrift store for Christmas. This game was in my collection, and I was like, "Oh yeah, this game! Oh my gosh, this is gonna be so fun!" Top Gun, one of the best plane fighter games for the NES. One of the best. I love this game. I actually love this game so much. Actually, very fond memories of this playing it back in 2012 when I first got my Retro Duo. Very cool game in my opinion. Anyways. Yeah, so, so anyways, let's take a look at my NES collection on NES titles. So, as you may know, guys know, we have Top Gun for the NES. Top Gun is a plane game, basically, so that's all you need to know. And up next, Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest, also one of the most hardest Castlevania games ever made. Rad Racer. Rad Racer is just basically a car racing game. I really love this game every time I play it, so yeah. If you have the time or patience to get an NES, pick up Rad Racer. It's a really good game. One of my favorite games for the NES, Metroid. Yeah, I played this game for more than an hour on my NES. There is so much to do in this game. There's so much exploration going around in this 2D side-scrolling action role-playing sci-fi game. I had to pick this one up. It's so good. So good. Check out Metroid. I really love Metroid. You're a space bounty hunter known as Samus, and you're trying to track down the space pirates known as Ridley and other boss battles in this one. So yeah, Metroid is actually pretty epic. Up next is that we have a very powerful game for the NES. Super Mario Brothers. Super Mario Brothers is just one of the best games for the NES. You can't go wrong with this one. It has been in pop culture ever since it arrived, basically. So Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt. Unfortunately, Duck Hunt doesn't work on clone systems. Not all of them, but I'm going to recommend some clone systems if you want to buy an NES. And last and not least, the sequel to Super Mario Brothers. I would recommend this to all of my friends. Girls, females, males. I actually love this game, and I prefer it to everyone who never has played an NES game or a Nintendo game or a video game at all. Super Mario Brothers 2. Yeah, this game is actually really good in my opinion, because it's actually, it has some jumping levels, and you can it's child appropriate. So what the heck, you can't go wrong with Super Mario Brothers 2. So yeah. All right. Let's talk about the next generation. 1990. I'm not talking about the Super Nintendo. We're still talking about NES titles and NES systems. The final product that Nintendo released back in 1990 was, you guessed it, the NES 2. The NES2 was a really small system compared to the original Nintendo Entertainment System. The Nintendo Entertainment System had to pull these little cartridges. You had to put your two fingers like this, plug in the game like this, press it down like that, and then away you go. But the top loader, the NES2, which many of you may know, is the top loader. Basically, the top loader is basically where you put your NES game in, like so, plug it into the top of the unit, and press a button, and you can play the game easier. And it was a massive improvement over to the original. Because not only you're just playing your NES games on the top and running them that way, it was very revolutionary at the time, and that is why Nintendo had to fix that. But sadly, the NES2 systems are limited to find these days. You only made like 100 or 1,000 in the US and all that stuff. So the NES2 was, a really good system. But, if you're a gamer who wants to get into the NES library, yeah, I gotta mention, there is a system, an NES system that plays NES games. It's not the Retron 5. Well, I do want to mention it in this video, but it was a ridiculous amount of price for this game system. And, it was such an embarrassment. I want to laugh out loud so hard right now because this game company decided to make an NES system with all the compartments. It included a Famicom port and an NES port. What is a Famicom port? The Japanese version of an NES game, basically. Only released in China and Japanese, and Taiwan and all that, stuff. And basically, the NES2, this system, I think it was like the analog NT. And guess what its pricing was to play these kinds of games? Like $100 to $200. Are you freaking kidding me? I'd rather buy an NES system, stick it on my wall for $100, not to play NES games. Anyways, that is pretty freaking ridiculous in my opinion. But there was a company, I'm really pretty pleased to actually say this. Even Christopher has one of these systems, but it's a little different. Nintendo Retrobit created the Nintendo Entertainment System. Basically, the Nintendo Entertainment System goes for $20, and it can play all your NES games in the most highest quality ever on your not HD TV, but your CRT TV. But you can play the system on a HD TV if you have the component slot on your TV, like yellow, white, red, and all that stuff. But anyways, yeah, you know what's crazy? The Nintendo Entertainment System was such a big behemoth, like a PC console, like this big around, basically. I think it was about like this size. I think it was about this size. Now, you're not going to believe me when I tell you this. Retrobit decided to shrink the NES console and make it into a clone or something like that. And clone systems are smaller than the original system. The original system had more parts. But this one, guess what its size is? Guess what its size is to play these NES games? And it's only $20. $20. If you get the red and if you get the red and black edition, it's $15 or $16 in that way. And guess what size is that system? Anyone? Anyone at all? Anyone at all? Okay, you in the back. Oh, is it a size of an Xbox 360? No. Is it a size of an N64? No. Is it a size of a Nintendo GameCube? No. It's the size of an NES cartridge. Not even kidding. The size of an NES cartridge. Leading through all the way over here to down to here. And the bottom is a little bit larger, but it's right to here, I guess, in the little palm of my hand. I don't even know how to explain it, my guys. This thing is so small. It is freaking small. It's so small, basically. Yeah. So, if you really want to play your NES games again in that, retro way, but you don't want to go out and buy an NES, go with the Retro Entertainment System. But there is one catch, though, to the Nintendo Entertainment, the Retro Entertainment System. The Retro Entertainment System, it actually has kind of a bad sound to it. Well, the sound is a little off from the original pitch of the game. So that's need to be bear in mind, basically. Just to be bear in mind as you're playing through a clone system that can play NES titles like this one, basically. So, yeah, that is my overall look on the Nintendo Entertainment System. It was a very good system back in the day. There were a lot of very unique titles. And if you want to check out those very unique titles that were hard as crap, go check out the Angry Video Game Nerd, basically. He has a ton of these games. And he actually reviewed this one, but he got angry at it. Yeah. I mean, talking swearing angry, basically. So, anyways, he's one of my favorite YouTubers. Angry YouTubers, basically. So, anyways, I'll be back. I'll be back with more videos. And guess what is my next playthrough? Guess what my next playthrough is? I have a very simple game that was originally generated from the PS1. That's right, the PS1. What could it be? What could it be that could be so spectacular, so adventurous on the Lincoln Williams Show? And that is Tomb Raider. Yeah. Tomb Raider. I cannot wait to jump into this game. I cannot wait to jump into this game and explore Lara Croft's adventure through this mysterious island of secrets and all this horror stuff that's going around in the island. And I have no idea, but it's going to be one crazy ride for Laura because, she is a, and this is a, female title, basically. I don't normally go for females, but this one, I have an exception for it because Lara Croft is so awesome in Tomb Raider. So awesome. So check out my Tomb Raider playthrough. Basically, it's going to be one of the best playthroughs that I've ever experienced. There's going to be a lot of jaw-dropping moments. There's going to be shocking scenes to this. It's going to be awesome. So, the final verdict for the NES. It has to be a 10 out of 10. No, yeah, it's that good. These games are like treasure to me. These games are like treasure to me. Basically. So, anyways. Even though my brothers did not own one when they were, kids at the time. I wasn't even born yet, so I couldn't suggest anything. I could not suggest a regular Nintendo Entertainment System toward my parents and all that stuff. And it would have been a total disaster if we got one, basically, because it would have been broken down in a few years. I mean, there's no other way. So, anyways, YouTubers, I will see you guys on the next Lincoln Williams Show episode with Tomb Raider. I will see you guys again when we begin Lara Croft's adventure, basically. I'm so excited to be doing this game. Anyways, I hope you enjoy this game, YouTubers, as I'm going to be going walk through it. Rise of the Tomb Raider was just amazing. This game is such an amazing improvement over the original Tomb Raider, basically. So, anyways, I'll be back someday, YouTubers.